Good morning, everybody. Erev Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for joining us on this beautiful Friday morning as we are getting ready for Perashat Behaalotecha. Our Perashah is a packed one. Today's class is sponsored anonymously for the Refuah Shlema of all of Israel. If anybody would like to sponsor a dedicated class, please email us info@ejsny.org. Okay, our Perashah Behaalotecha deals with many things, over 15 different topics. Of course, there are many beautiful essays written connecting all of the topics in our parasha, because you read them, Aharon lighting the menorah, which we didn't speak about this week. There's too many topics to talk about in just 5-6 classes. Aharon lighting the menorah, Moshe sanctifying the Leviim. Yes, Joe, picking them up, waving them right and left. The commandment to do Pesach Sheni, Korban Pesach, the people that couldn't do the first one. The traveling based on the clouds, the trumpets. We didn't do the trumpets, okay? They blew them to gather the people. They blew them to gather the Nesi'im. They blew them to do it, on the holidays for war, okay? A lot to talk about over there. Then the way we traveled and the order of the tribes. The tribe of Dan, we'll actually come back to this because that's today's topic. Moshe asks his father-in-law to stay, okay? Maybe that was the first and only time in history. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, then they travel from Har Hashem, they travel from Har Sinai. Then Vayi bin Aharon, the backwards Nun. Remember the backwards Nun in the Torah. The people that complained, chapter 11, Nathan. The people complained for meat, the nursing moms. Moshe complains that he cannot handle it. The 70 elders, Miriam speaks against Yehoshua, against her brother Moshe, and Lashon Hara. Okay, so look at this. This is each one could be a week in itself, literally each one. Today I would like to speak about, right smack in the middle, the idea of how the Jewish people traveled. It's going to be here in chapter 10, if you have a Chumash. The Pasuk tells us that they would blow a trumpet, and the trumpet was blown for a few different things. By the way, if I could just, say this nice thought over here, with your permission. We blew a chatzotrot, the trumpets, we blew them, and there were different amounts that we had. We had two. Sometimes we would blow both, sometimes we would blow one. Sometimes we would blow a teruah, different sounds for different messages. They didn't have texting back then. How do you tell 600,000 people, men, okay, much more people, 3 million people, how do you tell them it's time to travel? What do? So they had the trumpets that they would blow. They also had trumpets to sound when it was time to for war, or before holidays, before Rosh Chodesh, okay? Anyways, they would gather the people, and the Pasuk says, chapter 10, Pasuk 11, Vahi b'shana hashenit, b'chodesh hasheni, be'esrim b'chodesh, okay? The 20th day of the second month of the second year, so it's 1 year almost after we got the Torah. Finally, na'ala he'anan me'al mishkan hadut. The cloud, for the first time since we got the Torah, started moving. Oh my God, guys, let's go. The cloud's going, let's go. They start following the cloud. How do they travel? The Pasuk tells us they traveled according to the order that they were given. So as an example, okay, I just lost the place, sorry. I don't know why it does that. Okay, here it is. First, who goes? Yehuda. Then Issachar, and then Zevulun. Then the Mishkan would go, with Gershon Merari carrying the vessels, the tabernacle. Then Reuven with Shimon and Gad. Then Kehat carrying the vessels of the Mishkan. Then Ephraim, Menashe, and Binyamin. And who's last? Venasa, Pasuk says the last tribes. Nasa Degel Machane Bene Dan. The rear guard of all the divisions was Dan, okay? And Pasuk says, Me'asef lechol hamahanot. What does that mean? Me'asef lechol hamahanot. So Rashi says, Lefi shehaya shifto shel Dan merube be'uchlosim. Because the tribe of Dan consisted of numerous troops. It had the most than any other tribe except Yehuda. Yehuda was in the front. Dan had the second to most, so they were in the back. Haya nosea be'acharona. And watch this. V'chol mi shehaya me'abed davar haya mahziro lo. anyone that lost something, Dan was the lost and found. Isn't that interesting? Dan was the lost and found. Anyone that lost something, Dan would pick it up. Now, how do they restore it? And that's what Me'asef Lechol HaMahanot means. This is the Yerushalmi. Okay, Masechet Eruvin. The one who gathered in everything belonging to all the camps. Me'asef Kol HaMahanot. One opinion holds that they traveled in formation like a box. Now, by the way, if you hold that they traveled in a box, then what we just said doesn't work. Because if you're traveling in a box, imagine, right? I want you to picture, okay, this is the Mishkan right here in the middle, and then around the Leviim, and then around here, you had the rest of the tribes, 3, 3, 3, 3, okay? Now, when they moved, when it was time to travel, so let's say Yehuda goes first, so there's a big machloket. Did they travel like this in the same box formation? So if you were here, you stayed here, and if you were here, you stayed here? Or did they turn from a box shape when they camped to a I formation and they traveled in a straight line until it was time to settle again, and then everyone would go to their place and then camp like in a box? Okay? If you hold that they traveled in a box, then what we said is not true. Because Dan is here, how is he going to collect what's here? Right? It doesn't make sense. So when we say that Dan was the Me'asef Lechol HaMahanot, it's only according to the opinion that they traveled in a I formation, and that's a lowercase I, okay? But if, right, that is that opinion. Okay, very interesting. Rabbi Twersky, I would like to share with you what he says today. And he brings a very interesting story, a very powerful story. Just don't want to lose my place. Take a look. Why was it that the tribe of Dan, of all the tribes, was the one to do the lost and found? Anyone know? Why specifically their tribe, their shevet? Says Rabbi Twersky, a beautiful story. There was once a European Jew, he comes to speak to his rabbi and he starts crying with tears in his eyes. He says, Rabbi, I need your advice, I need your help. My son unfortunately went off the derech, he went off the path. He moved to America, he became a completely secular Jew, and he violates all the halachot, he violates Shabbat, he doesn't keep kosher anymore, nothing. And every few months my son became very successful because he moved to America, and he got so successful that he sends me every month money in an envelope. But I am sure that this money is because as well he works on Shabbat. Is it permitted for me to receive this money from my son? Okay, you can text in your answers. I'll give it a couple of seconds. What do you think the rabbi said? I see the texting going on. What do you guys think? Is it permitted for the father to receive the funds from his son? We know that usually on Shabbat, there's something called Ma'aseh Shabbat. Ma'as means some parnasah that was made, profit that was made on Shabbat. You're not allowed to benefit from that money. And no, the son wasn't owned half by a goy. Good question. That would have been good. And the rabbi said to him, you have to accept the money. Your son only does one out of the 613 mitzvot, respecting his father. And you want to take that away from him? It could be that it's specifically this mitzvah of respecting his parents that's going to eventually cause him to come back and to be connected to the rest of the mitzvot. And that is a very powerful idea that we learn in Pirkei Avot. You know, the Mishnah says, chapter 4, and we're doing Pirkei Avot in the afternoons for those that are following us. Chapter 4, Mishnah number 2, Mishnah Bet. There's a rabbi, his name is Ben Azai. Ben Azai was a student of Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yehoshua. And he tells us a few things in this Mishnah, Mishnah 2 of chapter 4. Number 1, he says, Heve zahir b'mitzvah kala kebahamura. Be very careful in doing a small mitzvah the same way that you would do a strong mitzvah. Unfortunately, today we all rate mitzvot. Okay? Now, it's not a good thing. We shouldn't do that, but we do that. We all have in our minds, this mitzvah is important, I do it. This mitzvah is not important, I don't need to do it, right? I'm sure you've all either said it or you've spoken to somebody that said it, right? We unfortunately, we know how to very easily dismiss certain mitzvot as not important, right? I only keep the important fasts. You ever heard that line? Or I only keep this level of kosher, right? The smaller level is not important, it's not a big deal, right? We rate mitzvot. And the Ben Azai is warning us that we should not do that. We should do all mitzvot with the same excitement, big or small, right? Why? Why is it so important? Whether it's easy physically, whether it's easy logically, whether it's easy because it's enjoyable, whatever the mitzvah is, do the easy ones the same way that you do the hard ones. Why? And by the way, it's the same with sin. Run away from every sin, big or small. Shemitzvah goreret mitzvah. And this is today's class. One mitzvah pulls another. Just like in nature, there is a magnet. A magnet, you attract metal. So too there are spiritual magnets. They're called mitzvot. And each mitzvah attracts another spiritual mitzvah. And the Ben Ish Chai writes that the reason Hashem created laws of nature, physical laws of nature that we could see with our eyes, is because God wants us to realize that that's how it is in the spiritual realm. So if you see something in the physical world, you should know that's how it is in the spiritual world. As an example, in the physical world, there is something called gravity. You see this tissue box? I'm going to drop it. Let's see what happens, okay? Place your bets. What do you think is going to happen if I let go? Oh, boom. Let's try again. Okay, let's try a third time. 4. Okay, I think if I do this 1 billion times, it's going to fall 1 billion times, right? Why? Because there's something called gravity. This world pulls things down. Says the Ben Ish Chai, that's how it is in the spiritual world. Spiritually, we will fall in this world. And if you want to keep something from falling, you have to exert energy. You have to work if you want things to go up. That's how it is. If you want to grow, if you want to climb, if we want to work on our character, if we want to perfect something, if we want to build muscle, anything, it doesn't matter. Physical or spiritual, it takes energy. It's hard. Well, it's true not only with gravity, it's true with magnets. A magnet pulls a metal, says the Ben Ish Chai, says the Torah tells us, mitzvah goreret mitzvah. You do a mitzvah, it's going to pull other mitzvot after it. And there is an amazing story at the groundbreaking of Yeshivat Chachmei Lublin. Shmuel Eichenbaum was a person who donated the real estate of the land. You can imagine the zechut that he has now. All the Torah studied in that yeshiva goes to him. Well, the Chortkover Rebbe said to Mr. Eichenbaum, he said to him, I am not jealous of this mitzvah that you are doing right now, of supporting the yeshiva. That's not something that I'm jealous of. What I am jealous of is what mitzvah did you do before that allowed you to have this mitzvah of donating for a Torah. Meaning, the Rabbi understood and he was teaching all of us that mitzvah goreret mitzvah. You want to do a big mitzvah? It starts with small mitzvot. The Rabbi is telling this man, your son is doing a mitzvah right now. It's called kibud av va'em. And guess what? Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. That mitzvah will pull other mitzvot. Even though that mitzvah that he's doing is a very rational mitzvah. It's a mitzvah that you don't even need to be Jewish to believe in. Non-Jews appreciate, respect your parents. That's a logical mitzvah. And still, mitzvah goreret mitzvah. This is a very powerful piece of advice for ourselves and for people around us. If we are wondering, how can I help inspire those around me? I want to get them more on the Jewish program. I want to get them more involved in Torah and mitzvot. The answer is, don't start with difficult mitzvot, like maybe Shabbat or kosher. You want to help? Begin with mitzvot that are maybe less. Again, it depends where they are. I can't speak as a rule. But depending on the situation, give them a mitzvah that's easy to do. But Rabbi, how is an easy mitzvah going to help them? This is nothing. What, just putting on tzitzit? I wanted them to be more. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. It's a reality. Every mitzvah that we do will pull in its wake another mitzvah. We create a habit of doing good things and vice versa. And that's why it's true the other way around with averot. Avera goreret avera. And therefore be very, very careful to stay away from every avera, even the small ones. What's the big deal? It's a small avera, Rabbi. Maybe. But guess what? Averot are also magnets. And maybe this one is small, but it's going to pull a bigger one after it. And a bigger one after it, till before the person realizes it, they're not only breaking something small, they're doing the biggest averot that they never dreamed that they would ever be guilty of. They're doing the worst immoral things that they never thought in their lives and never imagined that they would be that. And that's why the Rambam writes that a Baal Teshuvah is greater than a Tzaddik Gamur. Because a Baal Teshuvah already created a habit of doing bad things in his younger years. And therefore, they have to overcome all of that. All of that magnet, all of the magnetic spiritual field that they created, that force that's pulling them to do averot, they have to overcome. And if they do, they're greater than even a big tzaddik. And that's why we have to do teshuvah, by the way, even for averot that we do by mistake. I always wondered, I always thought about it. I said, I don't understand. Here's a guy, he woke up one morning and he didn't know it was Shabbat. By mistake, he opened his phone to see what time it is, and he's scrolling, looking at the Drudge or whatever he does every morning, and all of a sudden, oh my God, it's Shabbat. It happened to me one time, by the way, many, many years ago. One morning I woke up, and I literally thought it was a Sunday. I went on my phone, all of a sudden I'm like, it's very quiet for a Sunday morning. What's going on? And then I realized that it was Shabbat. That's called shogeg. That's called a sin by shogeg, by mistake. Okay, it's a mistake. But guess what? If you had a Beit HaMikdash, you would need to bring a korban for that mistake. Why? Why do I have to do teshuvah for that? What did I do? I'm not guilty of ill intent. I meant well. I wanted to do the right thing. A innocent guy that I was. I wanted to just see the time on my phone, and now I got to bring a korban for a sin that I did by mistake. Says the Maggid of Kozhnitz, because this avera that you did by mistake can lead to bigger averot. And so to prevent that from happening, we have to do teshuvah. You're right, the sin itself that was done by mistake maybe is not a big deal. One time the Maggid of Kozhnitz was on his Shabbat table, and by mistake he hit the table, he was singing, hit the table, and some people have the custom to light the Shabbat candles on the table that they're eating. Okay? And he hit the table, and he caused the candles to go out. And he started crying and crying and crying. And they said, Rabbi, it was a mistake. And he said, I'm not afraid of this mistake. I'm afraid of what sin this can lead to. Very powerful words. And therefore, we have to remember, sometimes we think when we're tempted to do a sin, you know what we say? We say, you know what? Let me just do the sin. Let me get it out of my system. And then I'll be good. You ever heard someone say that? Let me just do it once, and then I'll be satisfied. I'll be fine. Guess what, my friends? Avera goreret avera. Opposite. You do it, you're gonna even be harder next time to not do it. The Gemara says it best that the desire for immorality, it works the following way. If you satisfy it, it's gonna be more hungry. If you starve it, it'll be satisfied. Unbelievable. Okay? So we have to remember when we're tempted to do certain averot, not to satisfy it because, okay, I'll get it out of my system and I'll be okay, then I'll be done and then I'll never do it again. Opposite. Starve it. But Rabbi, I'm gonna explode. I gotta eat the food. No. Opposite. If you eat it, if you give in, you will realize that it's gonna be even harder and harder and harder. And therefore, it's the same, by the way, with the mitzvah. Yetzer Hara is so funny. When it comes to a sin, he'll say, just do it and you'll get it out of your system. And when it comes to a mitzvah, you know what he'll say? When it comes to a mitzvah, he says, listen, you don't want to overuse, your mind for Torah. you're gonna get a migraine. You're gonna work it out too much. You're gonna get a headache. Your lips. You're gonna pray all day. You're gonna wear them out. You're gonna grow old before your age. You want to take it easy on the mitzvot. Take it tawal balak, like I say in Arabic. Shoya. Go slowly. And it's the exact opposite. Again, look at nature, like the Ben Ish Chai is telling us. When you work out a muscle, does that muscle get weaker or stronger? When you work out a muscle, it only gets stronger. When we pray and we move our lips, we're not going to get tired. We're not going to wear them out. We're going to get even better in praying. When we work our minds a lot, we're going to get even better in learning. When we do mitzvot more often, we're not going to get more tired. We're going to get more energy. Just like muscles, right? If you don't work out the muscle, what happens? Eventually you forget how to use it. And then that's why you need physical therapy. It's crazy. But the more we work out, the stronger we get. You would think if you lift weights all day, your arm's gonna get tired, you're gonna be very weak. No, opposite. You work it out all day, you get even stronger. So again, mitzvah goreret, mitzvah avera goreret avera. If this is all true, we come back to the tribe of Dan. And Dan, like we said, was the weakest of all the tribes as far as their yirat shamayim. Did you know that? As far as their fear of God, Dan was the weakest. Okay, and what's the proof? You remember the idol of Micha that we ended up bowing down to in the desert in Israel? Well, that idol of Micha we took from Egypt. And who brought it from Egypt? Specifically, the tribe of Dan. We know that the Jewish kingdom was eventually split in the times of Rehovam, the son of Shlomo HaMelech. And when it was split between two tribes and the other 10. And the other 10, the northern kingdom, was initiated by a man of Yerovam ben Nevat. Yerovam was one of the worst kings in Jewish history. He was a king that the Gemara says, En lo chelek le'olam haba. He was a chote umachti harabim. He was a sinner. He made everyone else in Israel sin. Take a guess. What tribe was this man Yerovam from? Of course, he was from the tribe of Dan. And if that's the case, the Torah says, because you are weak, because you're not so connected to the mitzvot, here's a mitzvah. It's called returning a lost item. Returning a lost item. Is it a big mitzvah? Not a big mitzvah. Is it something that even Goyim agree to? 100%. 100%. Everyone could agree. You return a lost item. I remember one time I was walking to give a class in Brooklyn. This was a few years ago. And I was walking to synagogue at night to give a class. And on the corner of Avenue U and East 9th, all of a sudden I find a wallet on the floor. I pick it up. I look inside, there's not really a lot of money, just some credit cards, and I find the name, I look it up, quick Google search, and I call up the number. The guy lives in Staten Island. Called him up, I said to him, hi, did you lose something, sir? And he says, all of a sudden right away, he says, you found my wallet? I said, it could be. I mean, I need a siman. Obviously he wasn't Jewish, his last name was as Italian as it gets, But I said to him, I need a siman, I need a sign. Is it yours? Where did you lose it? Where do you think you lost it? He says, listen, I know I work on this area. I went to pick up my wife from this area, and the area that he picks up his wife works. He says, my wife works by a salon on Avenue U and East 9th. I said, bingo. Okay, I'm in this place. You could come by whenever you're ready. He's like, I'm going to be there in a half hour. Don't move. I said, okay, I'm here. When you're here, call me. Anyways, half hour later, I was giving the shiur. The guy calls me. I excused myself from the class. I went outside, and I see this man. I hand him his wallet, and he's like, "Don't move. I want to make sure you didn't take anything." I couldn't believe it. He accused me I was going to take something. Dude, I called you to return your wallet. But either way, he looks through the wallet. He realizes I didn't take anything. He thanks me and he says, "Let me give you something. Let me give you." He pulls out a 50. And I said, no, I only take 100 or more. No, okay, I didn't say that. I, of course, said, no way, thank you so much. He insisted and I insisted. I felt that if I would take money, it would take away from the mitzvah. So it was better off, just keeping it a pure, altruistic deed, which is really what I intended it to be. I would do it for a Jew. I would do it for anybody. And the man was, very appreciative. And if you ever lost an item, by the way, I'm sure you know what it feels like to lose it and not know where it is. Somebody asked me the other day, Rabbi, is there a limit of how many times I could say, Amar Rabbi Binyamin? there's a paragraph to say when you lose something. In the name of Rabbi Binyamin, is there a limit? Because I said it 100 times. Yes, like Elisha didn't take the money from the Aman. Very good. But that is the mitzvah of returning a lost object, and it's a beautiful mitzvah, and it's a mitzvah that I think everybody appreciates. But the point is very powerful, and that is that the tribe of Dan was given this mitzvah for one reason and one reason only. If you do it, if you return an object, would everyone necessarily call it a mitzvah? I don't know, I wouldn't call it a mitzvah. Again, a mitzvah to me is kosher and Shabbat and family purity, but returning an object is just human decency, common decency. I don't know, it's just, being a good citizen. Still, being a good citizen is also a mitzvah. It's one of the mitzvot to return a lost object. Give it to the tribe of Dan, and therefore they will be pulled in through this mitzvah, and hopefully they will be able to rid themselves of the other weaknesses that they have in the areas of the Torah and the mitzvot. So, again, this is a very powerful lesson, for us when we are wondering what we can do to help those around us. Giving a small mitzvah, giving them to give tzedakah, giving them to just, join you in chesed, an opportunity. Be amazed at how many times a mitzvah could help somebody. Just to close with one very interesting story. It's a story of halacha. And the story, it's brought down, it was a question that was asked to Rabbi Elyashiv. The story is as follows. There was a couple that had, unfortunately, a child that was violating Shabbat, and the couple was very bothered. And they tried doing everything that they can to try to help their child come back to the path of Torah and observance. One day, it was a Friday night, the child was sleeping. Okay. And they say, when you're an angel when you're asleep. You ever heard that line? Kids are the best when they're sleeping. Well, the parents felt exactly like that at this moment. They said, listen, he's sleeping now. And if we wake him up to do Kiddush on Friday night, if we wake him up to come do Kiddush, which, by the way, there's a mitzvah to do Kiddush on Friday night. And from the Torah, the mitzvah is to do Kiddush on a couple, on just words. You say Kiddush to sanctify the Shabbat, just like a verbal. God bless the Shabbat, Mekadesh HaShabbat. You do it in Amidah, Friday night. The rabbis, though, decided that it's nicer to give it on a glass of wine. Just like when you give somebody a toast. You don't just give a toast like this. I just want to, right? You raise a glass and you say, I want to give you a toast. So too, when you're sanctifying the Shabbat, do it on a glass of wine. And that's the mitzvah of Friday night. And the mitzvah applies to both men and women. Anyone over bar mitzvah, women are equally obligated, and therefore a lady can say it to fulfill the family if the husband doesn't know how to say it, or if the husband's away, the wife can say it, no problem. Children are exempt, and therefore if a child is under bar mitzvah, it's very important to let them come and say it because of chinuch, to listen. But it's important to remember that they cannot say it for you, because they are not obligated in the mitzvah. And therefore, if the wife doesn't know how to say it, or the father doesn't know how to say it, doesn't matter. It would not be okay to give the child to say the kiddush. Rather, the child should say it, and the father or mother should repeat word for word after them, and that would be the correct way to fulfill the mitzvah. Because you cannot fulfill the obligation through a minor who themselves are not obligated. Either way, the couple had the following dilemma. Should we wake up our child to hear kiddush? The child was over bar mitzvah, so they're obligated in the mitzvah anyways. Should we wake them up, do a mitzvah? But now, by waking them up, what's going to happen is they're going to be awake. And when they're awake, they're going to be violating Shabbat on their phone. Or is it better to just keep them sleeping? They won't hear kiddush, but they also won't do averot. Which one is preferred? And they asked Rav Elyashiv this question. Better to wake him up, he'll hear kiddush, but he'll also do sin, or let him sleep, no kiddush, but no sin. And Rav Elyashiv said, 100% wake them up. He said, but Rabbi, he's going to do averot on Shabbat. The rabbi said it doesn't matter, because the only way this child's going to come back to the path of Torah and mitzvot is by doing mitzvot. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. One mitzvah begets another one. And so if there's any chance of him coming back, is we have to allow them and give them the opportunity to do more mitzvot and more mitzvot and more mitzvot. So again, these are some beautiful ideas and points from our parasha. The tribe of Dan, me'asef l'chol ha'machanot. Why was Dan picked? And the answer, says Rabbi Twersky, because Dan was the weakest of all the tribes, and therefore Hashem gave them this extra mitzvah, believing in this spiritual magnet. We should be zocheh, us, our friends, our family, all those around us, to always do mitzvot so that we can do more and more and more, to stay away from averot, even the small ones. And remember how dangerous it is that each averah pulls another one after it. By doing these small mitzvot, we will be able to live a life that will introduce us to a comprehensive Torah life. We'll stop over here. Wishing everybody a Shabbat Shalom. Have a beautiful, enjoyable Shabbat. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.